because I was supposed to be on a different meeting that I didn't make because I'm awesome like that today. So yeah, so that's what I showed up there anyways. I'm like, oh, I showed up at ours. I'm like, yeah, let's just do that anyways.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sometimes Thursdays, it's
Mhm.
end of week.
The funny thing is I was sitting here. I was literally sitting here just watching the stupid news going, ugh, why am I watching this? Because, I don't know, because it's the same thing. Our news repeats after a certain time of the day. But
Oh yeah, that's fair.
anyways, what are you listening to today? What are you talking about?
Okay, so let's dive in. Just so you guys know, if you are new here, or just a reminder, if you have any questions, put them in the chat as we go, or towards the end, we open it up to Q&A. We do have a hard 1 hour today. Sometimes we can squeeze in an extra 10 minutes or so for your questions. So make sure you get those in early so that I stop in time to answer them. Some of you guys will ask questions at the very, very, very end. And then I always feel bad because we might run out of time. So do ask them early if you have them. If you want the replay of this gets uploaded to the podcast, the Bookkeeper Blueprint, which is available everywhere you can find podcasts or on YouTube. So YouTube has the podcast as a podcast. We also clip it for a nicer video at the end. If you're like, hey, I just want the best of the best, you can get that on YouTube as well. If you want to get notified when we go live, you can join the email list. So the Bookkeeper Blueprint, join live, and you'll get an email and text reminder that we're about to start the podcast. If you want to catch anything that we upload to YouTube, just click that notify button on YouTube underneath the Bookkeeper Blueprint, and you will get all of that there too. Today we're continuing our series under kind of the premise of if we only had 90 days to do this, right? Like I'm going to make sure this happens. Let's call it before August 1st, right? Like before the end of summer, what are we doing? So last week we talked about just getting started. What is the bookkeeping business all about? What does it give you? Remember Megan, and she shared this on last week's podcast if you want to go find it. But she wanted to leave her full-time job to have the flexibility with her only child, right? So like there was a lot of competitions and sports and things like that she wanted to be at. For me, I started this as like a serial entrepreneur experiment. I have an accounting background. I've now been doing this for 15 years. I left corporate to be a stay-at-home mom. I am not the mom that's sitting there telling you I need something to fulfill myself or all of those things. I started it as an experiment. Like I was very much content. I had my hands busy. I had 2 under 2. They were 13 months apart. There was really no extra time. So I have no clue how I did it. But because there's making food, there's cleaning the house, there's laundry, there's kids really wanting attention. So all of that. But I did start it as an experiment. I had found I wonder if that website, works. So that was Upwork. It was right when Upwork had rebranded. I don't remember if they were bought out or if they just rebranded, reshifted where they were going. Kind of like a Fiverr situation. So like kind of like Fiverr, people post, hey, I need a bookkeeper or I need this or whatever. My husband wanted to start a business. And so I was like, I have a professional degree. I'll see if this platform is any better. Actually, it was really great at that point in time. I think it is still a pretty good platform to grow. It's not as nice as it was then. Everyone's found it, which what does that do? It kind of waters it down. So, but he did get some, chemical engineering clients out of it. Some pretty cool opportunities there. And then I started this bookkeeping business based on that. That has not been my only marketing, but I did get to 6 figures using that as marketing, and then using Facebook to support what I was doing, using Google My Business to support, because Upwork was very SEO friendly. Google My Business was very SEO friendly. So both of those work together really well. And I'm always going to encourage you, if you were on the call on Tuesday night that I lead in the coaching program, we went above and beyond. Like, there are a lot of social media platforms. There's a lot of places you can market. How do we really 10x the effort that we're going to do in terms of, if you're networking in person, which is highly recommended if you can do it. I have young kids that I would have to drag with me, which I did for a season. The ROI for me on that BNI was not as good as some of my other in-person networking. So just a tangent there. That's how I got started. But if bookkeeping feels like a foreign language in the continuation of Bookkeeping 101, what do you actually need to know? If it feels like a foreign language, you're not crazy. It really, really kind of is. I very much think bookkeeping does take some learning. I do think it is more like a trade and not just your easy passive income or easy income that I feel like a lot of ads you'll see make it sound like. It does take some work. Yes, you're just categorizing income and expenses, but there is so much more to it than that. There's learning the balance sheet. There's learning how it all relates to the tax return. And the more you understand of it, the better service you're going to provide, and the more confident you are going to feel talking to clients. Okay. So we're going to make sense of what bookkeeping is together today. Many of you know that I started competing in accounting when I was in high school. So I was that crazy person. I was in a small town, so super small town. What do you take for electives? Well, me and a friend, I don't know why we did it, but there was a professor who could teach accounting. And so we took accounting and then competed in, if you're in Texas, it's called UIL. Feel free to look up what that means. Yeah. I would botch it. I know what it means, but I'm going to get the words wrong. So we competed in accounting. One day we were learning debits and credits. And if you learned accounting over 15 years ago plus, 20 years ago, etc., you will have learned on green tablets. You would have learned in green ledgers doing debits and credits with a pencil, and you loved your pink eraser, right? So like the pink eraser, because the pencil eraser is just too small. Like, you'll wear this out in like no time. So, and that's probably also where my love for like mechanical pencils came, because those boxes are so tiny. And one day he was telling us a story of a CPA he either worked with or for or had gone through accounting. Maybe it was another professor. This professor literally used drawers on either side of his desk to remember debits and credits. So I think he physically had like a cheat sheet. So he would open the drawer on either side, and it was his cheat sheet to remember which way something goes. If you need a cheat sheet, we do have one in for free for you guys. And I lost it. That's funny. I had it up for you guys. I might find it. I have too many things up. Did have it. Let's see. Oh, my internet also might be glitching. So if we get booted today, I am sorry. So if we get booted and I can't get back in, we will just call it a day. But I will try to get back in if I, for some reason, get booted from the internet. The cheat sheet is in the program. It is also a free download, this cheat sheet. inside the Bookkeeper Blueprint, what I really think you get is you get the trade. You get to really learn the trades. So anytime it makes sense to give a resource out, I really like to, guys, because I know some of you guys are trying to get started and you're like, you've either spent money on an expensive program and it's not working or something. So I'm a big fan of making the business pay for itself. I'm also a big fan of learning the actual trade that you've got, that you're doing. Bookkeeping is not just an easy side hustle. Okay, so you don't need to be a CPA. You just need a really solid foundation where you actually start to understand how things come together. Guys, I have worked with accountants and bookkeepers over the course of my career, not just inside the Bookkeeper Blueprint, where, you know, a new CPA comes into the accounting firm and they know like nothing, really. If they really think about it, they know nothing, and we're having to train them from the ground up because they haven't really understood how that textbook material actually flows through the P&L to the balance sheet to the tax return. Even though they've understood it enough for the test, there's something about real life understanding how it works. I have seen it take 10 years for something to finally click in a bookkeeper or an accountant. So I would say that's really true when I was in the accounting side of things, for it to really click and come together, for it to be like, oh, that's what you're talking about. And from that experience, I've gotten really good for seeing when the bookkeeper, it hasn't clicked yet. And I can start to back up and say, wait, let's remember what we're doing. And I can start to break it down to those easy, this goes here, this means this. And it starts to really help take it off the P&L and put it into real life. Okay. So what is bookkeeping really? We know that bookkeeping is simply keeping track of the money in the business. Every transaction. Yep, the 2-cent bank test. We have to record it. Every transaction that comes in and goes out, we have to know where it went and why. Okay. I see bookkeepers all the time that want to just delete something. Oh, it's really tiny. It went in and out. Like it's messing up my reconciliation. I just want to delete it instead of going back and doing it properly. There's always a time to delete stuff, but I'm also from the era where if you were a penny off, you could actually be $1,000 off because you might have 2 transactions, right? Fighting for each other. So we might be missing more than just a penny. So a penny off typically is not just a penny off. In QuickBooks, it gets easier. You might actually be a penny off, but in accounting, in the grand scheme of things, you might not be. Okay. The goal is to capture what actually occurred financially in a way that makes sense on paper and helps business owners make decisions. So we should all be able to understand. It's a universal language. I should be able to look at any business and say, here's what's going on in their books, because accounting is just like music. If you think about music, music is cross-cultural, cross-language. You can pick up a violin and a flutist can join because the music itself, the notes are not bound by language. Accounting is the same way. Okay. So if we're all using USD, you can understand the financials. If we're using a different currency, really it's going to read the same. Then you have to decide, are you using GAAP or are you using IFRS? And okay, so there's some nuances, but at the end of the day, the story should tell me the same thing, right? We talked about last week that bookkeepers are not nowadays just data entry people. You are translators. You can take messy financial activity and organize it into something actually useful. Some of you guys have had really messy cleanups. I call it the spaghetti bowl, and you're having to like pick apart the noodles and organize it into something that makes sense. But business owners, they really got into business to do what they do best. They're a mechanic and they're really good at it. I'm not good at mechanic. I took a lot of mechanic classes in high school. I did a lot with a lawnmower engine. I can weld. I can do some soldering. I can do some glass etching. I can do a lot of things. But I'm not gonna go repair my car engine. My husband, he can actually do a lot of that. So right. So that they're doing what they're good at. You're doing what you're good at, or what you're learning to be good at. Okay. Um, okay. So chart of accounts, like all of the accounts categories, a lot of you will refer to them as categories. These are where everything lives inside of the financial statements. So you have assets. These are like your bank accounts, your inventory, any equipment, your cash on hand accounts. If you have a petty cash drawer, those are on your balance sheet. Then you have liabilities. These are your credit cards, any loans, a vehicle loan, maybe, anything that the business owes to someone else. This could be payroll liabilities, sales tax liability. They owe the IRS, they owe the state for, maybe not their money, but they still have to remit it to the state, pass it along. We won't get into business owners have to, well, anyway. Okay, so what is equity? Equity hangs up a lot of bookkeepers. You will start to learn it as you put all the pieces together. But equity is what the business owner has invested or taken out of the business. Income, money coming in from customers, right? So customers are, I sold a product. Hey, we had some leftover inventory. I sold it at cost. That's all going to be income, money coming in to generate the business. Expenses, money going out for business needs. This is your bookkeeper cost, any professional services, any legal, any Microsoft office expenses, mileage, fuel, electricity. If a business owner pays $200 for a printer, you're going to increase that expense to office expenses, office supplies, because of those things. But if we're going to just expense it, we're going to code it to office supplies, office expenses, and then we're going to decrease the asset account, which in this case is the cash, the bank. Okay, that's it. That's all we have to do. And QuickBooks makes it really easy because what you're going to do is you're going to see an Office Depot expense come through the bank account. If your client isn't entering stuff ahead of time, where you're matching checks to checks, expenses to expenses, like is proper accounting, a lot of you guys are just going to go to the bank feed and you're going to put Office Depot. There's a receipt attached, hopefully, which is cool if there is. And you're going to see, HP printer, $200, and you're going to be able to code it just from there. If not, you might ask the client, what did you purchase from Office Depot? You'll get to know your clients. You'll get to know what to ask. If they're giving you receipts, bonus, makes it super easy. And then automatically what that bank transaction does is it's hitting that bank account and the office supplies because you told it office supplies. So it's taking care of both of that. It's taking care of that journal entry for you. You only need the journal entry from that perspective when you go in to figure out what happened, what went wrong, is it correct? And so you can pull up the general ledger and see the actual journal entry. And that's where that download can be helpful. If you're entering journal entries, absolutely print that off. Some people will put it as a screensaver for a while until they start to understand what it is. In bookkeeping, you're going to hear double entry accounting. So every transaction affects at least two accounts always. And the example I just gave, it affected the bank account. Somebody was taken out of the bank account and it affected office supplies. This is common to accounting. There's always going to be two different accounts hit. That's what they mean by double entry accounting. If you ever hear it and you're like, oh, I must not know what I'm doing because I don't know what double entry bookkeeping is. You do. I promise. You've got to hit two accounts. So you're going to think of it as a seesaw, equal and opposite reactions. One side goes up, the other side comes down. Has to stay balanced. In the course, we go through the accounting equation, what that looks like, and then then we start to take you through those financial statements. So if a client pays $1,000, we get to increase the bank, the asset account, and then we increase income. So, do any of you remember algebra? I feel like this starts to feel like algebra. 1 + 1 = 2, or A + B = C. That's how this feels, right? So the equation has to stay balanced. 1 + 1 does equal 2. So we have to increase the bank asset, increase revenue. If the owner puts 5,000 in the business, so maybe the startup cost, maybe there's cash flow crunch, and we're going to get some money back in the business. We're going to increase that bank account, but we're going to increase the owner's equity because the owner contributed money. It's not sales, it's not revenue. And a lot of times you're going to see owners put some really funky things inside revenue. And that is a really big when it comes to taxes, because then they're artificially inflating their income. There's a reason we put stuff where it goes, and we want to make sure we know what these deposits into the business are. Let's say we pay for a software subscription, right? Zoom, we're all on Zoom today. So let's say an annual expense came out for software subscription. Money went bye-bye. So decrease the bank. So we're decreasing the asset. We are going to increase the expense software. So you saw two different financial statements hit: balance sheet, income, and income statement. And it's Thursday. I've used a lot of words, right? There's always two sides. Something is coming in, something is coming out. No transaction will ever stand alone. You'll never just have a cash transaction that doesn't hit something else. It's not possible. So there's always an equal and opposite reaction in the financials. Okay. So from there, some of you guys were probably trying to mentally say in your head, well, you're going to debit, you're going to credit, when I went through increase, decrease, right? So if it's assets, you're going to debit to increase the asset. You're going to credit to decrease it. Liabilities, you're going to debit to decrease. You're going to credit to increase. There is a really cool video in the course. There are some hacks that accountants and bookkeepers have come up with, some words, some acronyms. How do we remember this? In the Bookkeeper Blueprint, we have a couple of those. So if you're like, I really want to understand these, they're there for you. But dealer here, so D. You can use the word dealer and you can understand which way it goes. Okay. Liabilities, debit, decrease, credit to increase. Equity, debit to decrease, credit to increase. Income, your debit is going to equal a decrease. So your debit card, actually, that's a really bad idea. That confused me in high school. I was like, why are you telling me a debit card? If the only reason you can have a debit card is because there was an increase in your asset. Now we're going to use that debit card to credit the account to decrease it. But that always confused me. I was like, why would you tell me a debit card? Because I'm like, I'm swiping, I'm taking money out. But the only reason I can take money out, the only reason I can swipe it is there was a debit or an increase into the account. So there's debit funds in my bank account, so I can take it out. Okay. Hopefully that helps someone and not confuses someone. That took me like 10 years to understand. I'm just kidding. But it just, when you learn something and your brain connects it backwards, it's like always hard to undo. So it made me laugh. Like I was like, no, not debit card. Like, and would argue with myself, like, just forget that analogy for myself. Expenses, you're going to debit to increase them. You're going to credit to decrease them. So if you're looking at that debit credit cheat sheet, you're going to see how they stay balanced, okay? Using the accounting equation, assets equals liabilities plus equity. Income and expenses flow through to equity at the end of the day. You don't need to memorize this. All you need to understand is the pattern of money goes in, something comes out. It has to stay balanced. QuickBooks does this for you innately in the software. It is such a benefit to use software. It's like a cheat sheet. Absolutely. There's that link. Okay. A visual example. If you're spending money from a bank account, the bank balance goes down, right? So the debit card, I then credited the account to take money out. The expense goes up. So we're going to debit the expense. So if there's a credit, there has to be a credit. If there's a debit, there has to be a credit. Also, when you're starting to visualize this, if you're doing journal entries or if you're visualizing what to do, obviously we could get into T accounts. I'm not going to do that to you today. This is bookkeeping 101, not 202. Anytime you fill out QuickBooks, like a QuickBooks journal entry, do your debits first. Debit first, credit second. And you're going to give yourself a consistent pattern. So there will always be a debit and there will always be a credit. Some of you guys like to always start with sales, which is a credit. Because you're going to credit it to increase it. And so like when I'm looking at y'all's journal entries, it always like, I know what you're doing. But 90% of you have been taught to do sales first on like clearing account journal entries, things like that. Credit increases income, and then your debits are recording the fees and things. So you're increasing those expenses, you're increasing sales, you're increasing the expenses. So you're going to hit credit, you're going to debit those expenses. Okay. Ultimately, your focus has to be what is happening in the business. Some of you will hear your business owner say, I took money out of the account and I did this other thing. And they'll give you like 10 different steps for everything. And it gets really confusing because you're like, well, this transaction they said is also for this other transaction. Really separate it out. Handle one transaction at a time. If they give you 5 different scenarios for one transaction, there's probably also like 5 different transactions. Debit first is really just an accounting principle. It's really just an accounting standard. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like you're still getting to the same answer. It's just a accounting practice. Debits first. Not a big deal. Okay. So then how do transactions show up in software? I've been kind of alluding to this over it because I want to make sure you see it if you're a visual learner in how QuickBooks works. Using QuickBooks Online or something similar, if you're using Wave or Xero or something like that, you're not doing like a manual journal entry. You often don't have to do a debit credit. The system is going to do that double entry behind the scenes. And that's where I said you're going to go to the bank feed, you're going to do this, or you're going to enter a check. The check is going to remove money from the checking account or wherever it's attached to, and it's going to increase that expense. So it's doing that double entry behind the scenes for you. So if we have a check, we're going to enter a check. If we have a deposit, we're going to enter a deposit. If we have a payment, we're going to enter the payment. That makes it easier to learn. So we start to learn, what does this even mean? And then we can start to understand the how. So keep it simple. Simple for you. Remember, it's a trade. You're going to be learning over years. So what are the reports that matter most? The profit and loss, the income statement, often called P&L because it's just easier to say. Shows income minus expenses. You're going to see all these sales, all the revenue up at the top. Then you're going to see all the expenses at the bottom. That's going to equal your net profit. That net profit goes to the balance sheet. If I had had time this morning, I totally would have pulled up a image for you that I know I have in the course, showing you how these connect. The balance sheet is going to show your assets, your liabilities, and your equity. Okay, this is a snapshot of your business health. So it's like your dashboard, your report, your health report, your report card, all of those things. That's what the balance sheet is. And it follows that assets equals liabilities plus equity, or owner's equity, however you want to say that. But A equals L plus OE, right? That's the summary. That's really everything. And the statement of cash flows tracks money in and out. This confuses business owners. So, they're looking at the P&L and they're like, I had $500 go out for a credit card payment, but it's not decreasing their net profit because it's hitting the balance sheet because it's cash flow. The statement of cash flows really helps them know how much came in and then how much went out. And so if you have a business owner that's like arguing and not really understanding why their full credit card or the full loan payment isn't on the P&L, the statement of cash flows, learning how the statement of cash flows works, is really going to help them out. Okay. I view my job, with that said, to not necessarily have to know everything, right? Like, I don't view you guys as having to know everything under the sun. You don't have to know all the ins and outs of a C Corp and APEC calculations at year end to help a Schedule C business owner, or even an S Corp business owner, or a partnership business owner. Most of you guys are doing those three, and you're not handling C Corps to the same extent, or nonprofits to the same extent, right? So if we had our choice, a super new beginner bookkeeper, probably Schedule C type business, then maybe a partnership or an S Corp once you get a little bit more familiar with the balance sheet. Some of you got a client, they're an S Corp, we're going to learn it all right then and there. That's okay. We learn one piece at a time. Your job is to get familiar with everything that's going on. So I tell you guys to read the tax return like a novel, like a book. So I request the last 3 years of tax returns. That gives me a really clear picture of what's going on. They can also amend it. Should I discover assets aren't on the books, equity is super wrong, it gives me the opportunity to say, hey, we actually should go back and clean up because you've overpaid in taxes. You can do that as a bookkeeper. You don't have to know tax returns to do that. You can just physically read the tax return, I promise. And as you get more experience with it, you'll start to recognize what it is. But if we're never going to read it, you're never going to learn how that impacts what you're doing, and vice versa. Your job is to help the client understand what's working, what's not, and what they have to pay attention to, right? If they have a question for you, all you have to do is point back to, well, last year you did this year you did that. And QuickBooks makes that easy. We can talk about it in another day, how to compare stuff, how to start to analyze some of those things. But if you've been telling yourself, I can't be a real bookkeeper because I don't understand all the accounting stuff, you don't have to understand all of it. We have to understand, what did this transaction do, and make sure each individual transaction got coded correctly. We're going to take them one by one. Okay. You don't have to be perfect. You just need the tools to figure it out. QuickBooks helps you do that. There was a study, I think Alex Hormozy shared this, where they took like 20 different tax preparers, different levels of tax preparers, different tax preparers, and they all did the same tax return. They got 20 different answers. So from a tax perspective, how correct is it? We don't want to pride ourselves with just how, is it good enough? We really want it to be as correct as possible. But there are going to be some instances where good enough is okay. Like if you're spending 2 hours trying to figure out if it's office supplies versus office expense, you're focused on the wrong thing. Okay. We can help with that. And there is a cheat sheet for that too in the course. Man, I need like a packet of, what to code where. Like there's a high level help you out, because don't spend too long on office expenses, office supplies. What helps the client? That's not going to be really a big tax matter. Does that make sense? So we're not going to focus we're not going to create like two accounts and have like one that has $2 in it. We're not going to have both accounts. If they just use office expenses, we're going to just use office expenses. That's my opinion. Okay. You can ask questions along the way. If there's something you don't understand, you don't know, ask questions. Sometimes there's just, hey, what do I do with this transaction? But then there's, okay, now why did we do it that way? And if you start asking the why, you're going to get to where you want to be faster in terms of feeling confident in what you're doing and in the financials that you're giving your clients. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Especially if you do not have a client, or if you're under 10 clients and you have the time, do your personal bookkeeping in QuickBooks. They're already transactions you're uber familiar with. It's going to make a whole lot more sense when you're looking at the cash flow statement, the balance sheet, and the P&L, because you know what's going on in your budget. Some of you don't want to look at it. You don't want to understand. You're like, I just want to hide from it. But as you do that, you're going to understand, oh, yeah, okay. I know I had $5,000 go out the door this month. I don't see that on the P&L because remember, I just paid off that credit card that's been bugging me. Okay, that makes more sense, right? And you can start to see that on the statement of cash flows, and it will start to come together. So use something that you're familiar with. Your own business, for example, would be a great way to also see those three in action. Okay, I hope this was helpful to you guys in terms of just kind of trying to make it more world side of the bookkeeping process, what you're actually doing, taking away the overwhelm of it. Hopefully I didn't create more overwhelm. But if you guys need help along the way, we do hands-on helping in the Bookkeeper Blueprint. I'm going to drop the link to that if you would like to join. There are calls that happen every week. Unlike a lot of programs, I host one of the calls, Megan hosts one of the calls, and then we have another coach that hosts another call during the week. So there's always calls. There's coaches answering in the Facebook group. If you have questions, we have a private chat with you guys. If you want to connect with me on Voxer, that's an option too, where you get, my attention there, Megan's attention there, if you want to send us more information there. If you would like to book a call and talk to me and Megan, hey, how does this work for your business? There is a link on that website to do that as well. Okay. So hopefully all of you guys got the debit and credit cheat sheet. If you need it, you can always grab it later from our website, message me for it should you need it. It's just a helpful visual to start to understand it. I don't feel like you have to memorize it right out of the bat. It's just going to start to give you clues on why something might not be working. When it comes to a journal entry, when you're reviewing the balance sheet and you're like, well, that's negative and that shouldn't be, right? I'm going to pause there and open it up for questions. If you have questions or want me to go back and explain something, feel free.
Hey, I have a question.
Yep.
I think I asked before, but I don't remember the answer. So for fixed assets, right? So like for a vehicle, when when would that when would it be right for it to go on a business balance sheet? Like say the vehicle was purchased with, from the owner, and they're taking vehicle expenses as needed. When would it be appropriate for it to go on the business balance sheet, for it to be captured as a fixed asset and to be depreciated?
The entity type is going to matter a little bit. If they're depreciating it on the tax return, then it should be on the asset, like on the balance sheet. But I think you're
Yeah,
asking
and
me
when
that in reverse, like when is it an asset? When the business owner and the tax preparer, the CPA, decide that it's an asset.
okay.
Because you don't have to formally sell it. Like you don't have to formally put the business, like the title in the business name. Like it can still be the owner's name on the title for it to be like,
Okay.
if that's what you're asking. Like, so the title does not dictate. If it is primarily being used for the business, we argue that it's like, it is a business asset. The problem with that is if you're not going to sell it when you sell the business, you're going to buy it back. So just, think ahead anytime that we're doing that.
Okay, so yeah, I'm thinking like because some clients just don't know, or they don't understand what should be what's right, and they look to us to, you know, to guide them in the right direction. And I don't really know the answer. So like, say that like somebody has a vehicle, they've had it for a couple of years, they started a business, they're using it mainly for business now. Like what I guess the tax preparer would determine, and they would be the one to advise, like, this is when it should be on the books. I'm just trying to see, like,
I'm going to
try
be
to guide them
hesitant
in
to
the right
say tax
direction.
preparer. I'm going to say tax strategist, because
Okay.
some people just have a tax preparer who's not
Mm-hmm.
doing that for them.
Right.
And so anytime that you have a business owner, we want the business owner to really understand the implications. We don't know everything going on with the business owner. Typically we might like, they only have one business, whatever, but does their wife have a W-2? Do they own another business? How old are they? Are they contributing to, like, there's just so many more things than the business only. So yeah, we can put it, like, if the business owner is like, I really believe this is an asset, we can put it on there, but it's really a discussion to have with the person seeing the big picture. And so I
Mm-hmm.
really am hesitant to ever have a bookkeeper give tax advice
Mm-hmm.
when we don't know. I mean, obviously you might know, but unless you're like analyzing their entire tax situation, we
Mm-hmm.
don't know. And we don't know their future plans for the business. Maybe they're telling you. There's just so much more that should go into that conversation, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Okay,
To
that
really
makes
serve the
sense.
client. Yeah, I'm not trying to not answer. Like, it can go on the books. We don't have to have it on the title. If it is really a business asset, we can buy it into the business or sell it
Mm-hmm.
into the business and do that at the point that it is really a business asset. They've got another vehicle for personal, right? Because we don't want to set them up for audit risk.
Mm-hmm.
So they really need to have a different personal vehicle. Or, maybe they take the bus and so they have a bus pass. We need to have another proof of other form of transportation.
Okay.
Does that help, Cameron?
It does, yeah. So basically, it depends, right? And it's like they should be speaking with a professional that is the one that would be the person to advise them. I mean, I'm pretty much just gonna leave it at that.
I
Because
need a
yeah,
big
I really
sign
don't.
that says it depends. Like, unfortunately, I think we've accounted since like the beginning of accounting. Like, it depends. Just because, and that's like really truly like an accounting phrase. If it isn't in the textbook, it is an accounting phrase. I've heard, CPAs, tax preparers use it all the time, just because your situation and Sunshine's situation, even when it comes to bookkeeping, whether or not you should be an S corp or not, there are so many other factors. So, but I mean, simply put, if it is a business asset, we're using it for the business, we're going to depreciate it because it benefits the business to do so. It can go on the books as an asset. So when it's primarily used as the business asset and we're going to depreciate it, it goes on the business
Got it.
balance sheet.
Thank you.
Yep. You can maybe argue some more, do some IRS code digging. I'm not going to do that today for you, but normally it's a tax strategy decision. Okay. Sunshine, I think we're kind of talking about two different things. I think you're trying to put an analogy to it. It's just when you learn textbook accounting, debits always get put put first, and you will physically get the answer wrong if you put the credit first. The professor will exit. It's wrong. So that's all that I was saying there. It's just standard practice is put the debit first, regardless of it if it increases or decreases. It's just the pattern of how we want to see it on the general ledger. It has nothing to do with the transaction itself. And for T accounting, if you have learned on T accounting, that's how you balance. So it's like a teacher marking it wrong because like in math, you didn't give the full answer. Okay. Any other questions? Any marketing questions? I'm happy to help you in any of those endeavors. Good morning,
I had,
Anna.
I had another one, but I don't want to monopolize.
Go for it.
So I've been talking to other people on Facebook, still trying to outreach and, um, speak with as many people network. So a couple of people, two people actually, that have like real estate, businesses, and they have business, real estate networking, and they asked for, like a professional services report. So that's like asking, they want like a report that they would be able to disseminate to other members within their network that explains like my business, what I'm about, what do I offer, price ranges. So like I guess a more condensed version, professional version than, content on the website. Like they wanted it in like a report fashion. Never been asked this before. So, and, they're not asking for a resume, because obviously, I'm not working for you, in my own entity, but they're asking for a professional services report. So I don't know if have you been asked this before? And if so, like, do you have any tips on how to
No,
handle it?
I have done like brochure type flyers, like here's a summary of what we do. But when we start to say professional services report, the funny thing is that like that's going to show your financial data and business performance. So it's going to like a professional services report is your revenue earned by client, product, or service, your hours billed,
Mm,
like cost of labor. Like you're not providing that to a potential client. um you might be providing that to investors, or
mm-hmm,
like that's not something you would provide a potential. I would imagine they're looking for like a services guide, um
mm-hmm,
brochure type thing, and you can do that in like a flyer. You were on the call with Cameron Montgomery where I gave
mm-hmm.
like a pricing package in
Yes.
like that type of report. You could beef that up in a couple of pages to be a professional summary of what your business offers.
Okay.
Does that help? Or like, are you like, do you really need to provide a professional services report? I
Well,
have
I mean, he
never had
didn't.
to provide something like that. Just a summary of
Yeah,
my services, maybe yes, absolutely.
yeah. It was really more so that one of the people, they said that they want to see, summarization of what I offer, how it benefits real estate investors, because they want to see, I would do more than like what an average bookkeeper would do, because I know more about real estate investing and how it would be able to hit their pain points. Talking about different examples, like, have some testimonials that from real estate investors that show that I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing. And there was another item, I don't remember what it was, but yeah, I was working on like a Canva report, but I wasn't gonna put any of my statistics, because I don't think,
Yeah.
why
So you
would
would
they need
just
to know
gear
that?
it
Yeah.
to the real estate investors, like, and if you don't have stats right now, it's, um, you know, this industry, we see 20% growth. Like we see a 20% improvement. I'm making this number up. You can find the stats. I do have the stats saved for like just a business owner in general. It's like just general business owners, if they don't have a bookkeeper, they're more likely to fail. and there's specific
hmm
stats by this. So you could do generic stats until you
hmm
have, and maybe you already have them, like
Yeah, I have one stat
XYZ.
for about cash flow. Like 82% of businesses that don't know how to track cash flow generally fail. Like something from US Bank did a
Yeah.
survey.
Yeah, you could, so you can organize some of that data. Really, you're
hmm
pitching yourself of want to hire me, and that would be to
hmm
anyone, right? Like,
Right.
well, you're going to gear it to probably real estate, but any bookkeeper can do this, and it's like your sales pitch on a flyer, call it.
hmm
Um, and you can have a testimonial. I had like a brochure set up, but it was like you could either do it as a trifold in Canva, or you could print it out like a 3-page back, front and back document.
hmm
You could do it as a flip book for your website. If you wanted to host it on your website, you can do like a flip book, and you can use something like Designer to do that. And so we'll create a flip book where they just go through it on your website. And so you can send them that link, and that
Okay.
would elevate the way it looks on your website.
Yeah. So like no more than like 3-4 pages.
I don't think you would need more than that
Okay.
until like, unless you're doing like case studies, and that's the rest of it. But the first part of it should give them, like, I should probably figure out what you're doing in 3 to 4 pages max. 2 would be great. 3 to 4 if they're really looking for like what you do. But then if you're doing case studies as a part of that, maybe you get to 10 pages.
hmm Yeah, I was gonna put like like an introduction, like who I am, a little bit about the firm. I was gonna put my method of chart of accounts for real estate investors, ensuring that, making sure everything is generic and not to have like the property as a chart of accounts, and to make sure that it's scalable, using products and services, job costing. Like I was talking about like specific ways to optimize reporting, that other bookkeepers may not be privy to. And I was going to put, people that gave me Google reviews. I was going to put that, my pricing, and then all the services that I offer. And that was like almost like 7 pages. That I don't know if that's just if I'm doing too much.
No, you could do that. I would, if you're going to do that much, I would do, because it's also front and back. So that's like 4.
hmm
Or
Sure.
are you saying like 7 front and back pages?
No, it was like 7, just
Okay.
7 pages. Yeah.
So yeah, that's still that 4. You
Okay.
know, that gives you 8. Um, you might try that, and then we can always
hmm
we can A/B test it. If you're using something like Equip 360, you can A/B test the design, but you might consider using something like Designer to do a flip book, and then
Okay.
link to that.
You said the designer. That's what's called.
Yeah, 2 R's, no E at the end, so it's Design
Okay.
RR. I don't remember how much it is, but and there might be free other options to do flip books.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Peggy, what's your question? And I'm gonna grab that link for you. So it wasn't a flyer link, but it's like you can take that, like I did it as a flyer as well, like a template. You could take that and beef it up into some of the other things. I do have a ton of Canva brochures, flyers, some of those things in the course. But let me get this one for you. And then feel free to unmute if you have like another question.
That was what I needed. Just the flyers so I can put together something like what y'all are talking about.
Yeah, let me grab that for you. Sunshine is asking my marketing tip of the week.
Did my talk come through?
Yes, it did. Yes. Sorry, I'm grabbing it. Peggy, let me know if there was something else there. Sorry.
Thanks. And just the flyer you talked about, and then the services price list.
Okay. Here you go.
I would like to say he sounds like he's so much farther along than I am. I feel like, is this going to happen for me? I'm so far behind or so far unknowing, especially of social media.
No, I mean, he's got a different level of expertise that he's providing. So he's got an industry that he knows more about. Keep in mind, Megan had no experience when she got started. And if you're working with Schedule C businesses, it is income and expenses for the most part. Like that's what they need. And so when you're talking to people, that's where you're going to focus. And I just sent you a private message and I dropped the link to the pricing. If you want to talk more about that too, like the whole point of this like next 90 days is geared probably more to you than Cameron, but Cameron is also at a point where anytime he can take stuff that he hears on any level and apply it to himself right now, and it will continue to make him better even if he's got some areas that he's more advanced in. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, just like me, I have an associate's in accounting, so I have knowledge there with the T accounts. I'm more along in that area. It's just not the social media or the design of like the package he was talking about. I wish I could put something like that together and get it out on my social
There are
media.
some really cool. So we did a lot of templates for that person in general. If you're like, hey, I'm not gonna join right now. Etsy has some too. You can pull down from Etsy, use their template, and create a service package like PDF. And so if you go to search Etsy, it's gonna be service packages.
Okay, Sherry, I know we're hard to stop, but I want to say, Peggy, like, if you aren't afraid of numbers, you're ahead of a lot of people. So you're doing fine. You'll do fine.
No,
But
the numbers I have, the
see,
accounting, I'm good
that's
there.
the
It's
point.
the advertising.
You can do it, though, is my point, because they want your accounting skills more than they want your advertising skills in the world. And I have to say the blueprint, once I joined that, they've helped me a lot with my marketing. That's why I put about the marketing tip of the week, because marketing is our hardest thing probably for accountants,
Yes.
because it's not our world. But
Yeah,
they're
I'm
really
not a
good at
marketer. I'm an accountant.
they're in the program, they're really good at supporting you through that. So
Good. Thank you for that.
mhm.
Well, thank you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and jump off. I've got another meeting to jump into, but I love these Thursdays calls. Thank you for joining. If you have questions throughout the week, post them in the Facebook group. If you want us to cover it on the podcast, put it in that thread. There's a thread on the Facebook group, or just post it and let us know that you want to discuss it, and we will make time for that. So I will see you guys next Thursday. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye, guys.
Thank you all. Bye bye.